Okay, let's rapid fire through all the news and then get straight into all of the brand new balance changes. There's some exciting stuff in here, man. All right, big news. If you're not aware, open beta is starting at 3 p.m. EST. So at the time of this video going up, not much longer now until everyone's going to have their hands on the game. If you'd like to go download the game and you didn't get an invite to any of the previous betas, don't worry. This is a completely open beta that you'll be able to download directly from the website. And in the future, the game will launch on Steam and Epic Games Store and all that stuff. But that isn't what this video is about. I just wanted to get that out of the way. So now we can focus on the balance changes. Let's go over it. So a couple days ago, Ben Stoll wrote up a really cool article. I highly recommend going to read this to get an insight on their design philosophy. Lots of cool information in here. Please go check it out. At the bottom of this, he listed every single card that's going to be changed going into the open beta patch. Now, we're yet to get patch notes to find out exactly what these changes are, but the cards have updated on the card database, so we can actually find out what these balance changes are a little bit ahead of time. With the exception of two cards, at the time of me recording this, Booster Gold and Double Time have not been updated. So we don't know what these two cards are going to be changed to, unless that changes throughout the recording of this video, in which case I'll let you know. If I do finish the production of this video and those two cards haven't been updated, I'll let you know with a comment and I'll update the description with what the changes were to Booster Gold and Double Time. Alright, first things first is Atroctius. Atroctius simply got +1 defense. Any buff to Atroctius is welcome. We certainly haven't found a cohesive strategy for Atroctius just yet. You'll be surprised just how well he works in Joker lists because he pings off a lot of things, so he deals a lot of damage and lots of stuff happens. And as a result, Atroctius receives a lot of attack. And this attack he retains for the rest of the game as well. So as long as Atroctius is living, he can get pretty big pretty quickly. The only problem really is keeping him alive, which is kind of difficult to do because there's so many removal options, especially later in the game. So while I'm hopeful for Atroctius, I'm still not expecting big things out of him. I wonder if they ever tried this card internally at Silver with like maybe a 1/4 stat line. Be very curious to see that. Anyway, like I said, happy to see the buff. Let's move on to the next card. The next card is Batarang. A lot of people are going to want to talk about this card. People were very excited to see this card on the balance changes. It is now deal 1 damage instead of 2 damage, so it's lost 50% of its damage, which is a pretty big deal actually. Now when you seek a gadget with Batman, you're probably going to lean a bit more towards tear gas in a lot of cases, which puts Batman more in the back foot rather than the aggressive foot, which is probably about where he should be. And another consequence of this is probably that you're not running Batarangs in your actual deck themselves anymore. Now you're probably just going to rely on getting them off of gadget generation. Now, to offset this, there are actually some really positive balance changes that I would certainly consider buffs for the gadget package that we'll talk about a little bit more as we get into this, which is good because if you change Batarang, you more or less affect the entire Tactics faction, but especially anything related to Batman. So let's move forward. Wait, I forgot to mention, upgraded Batarang has also been reduced by 1 damage, so it lost 25% of its damage instead of 50% of its damage. It's gone down from deal 4 damage to an enemy recruit to deal 3 damage to an enemy recruit. This change is certainly less significant than the previously mentioned one, but it's still a change worth keeping in mind as you build out Batman lists and gadget lists. Batmobile is the next gadget card that got changed. This is an ultimate card, so it wouldn't surprise me if you haven't seen it before. I love what they've done to this because it makes it more applicable outside of like mono strategies. Before I would have said something like Batmobile probably only belongs in a mono list. Now this change makes Batmobile significantly more flexible. So Batmobile now reads, give a friendly leader, hunter, and evade. That's what it's always did. And then it gives +3 attack. Then it says, if they are a tactics leader, give them +1 attack this turn for each gadget you've played this game. So here's a couple big meaningful things to keep in mind for this. The +3 attack that you get from Batmobile is permanent. It's only the bonus attack that you get from having played a certain number of gadgets that is temporary. I really want to try a Batmobile control list with the Flash as my other leader, where we buff up our Flash to have like permanent +3 attack, which is like a huge deal. The Flash is probably going to be one of the characters I look at playing a lot come the open beta patch, which is very, very soon, so I gotta hurry up and finish this video. Moving on to Chaselon. Chaselon is a 2/2, or he was previously a 2/2 and now he's a 2/3. Personally, I was hoping they got rid of the first time that you play another Green Lantern and made it when you play a Green Lantern, because there's lots of fun stuff you could do with like Green Lantern Cadet and lots of cute little ramp stuff you could do with Chaselon. But unfortunately, he still has that first time you play. I say unfortunately, but this is still a meaningful buff. 2/2 to 2/3 is a big change. He dies to less things now. It's certainly much easier to protect Chaselon than it once was, so just maybe the Green Lanterns have a chance to really come alive with Chaselon as a main part of their package. And I'll definitely be trying out Green Lanterns when the open beta patch goes live, because we also got to change to his leader, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Freddy Freeman went from being a 4/4 to a 5/5. This is a massive change. Freddy Freeman was already a card I thought that was being overlooked quite drastically by a good percentage of the community. Now he's a 5/5, makes him even better, and similar things can be said for him because his leader got a big buff today as well, which we'll talk about once we get to him. I love this version of Freddy Freeman, and I expect to be playing him quite a bit. Hal Jordan. There's lots of different levers you can pull on Hal Jordan. You can modify the first part of his text that adds a green lantern to your hand. Maybe instead he could seek a green lantern. Maybe he could generate a green lantern every time he uses his ability. Maybe he could generate more than one bronze resource. Lots of different levers to pull on Hal Jordan, but they've gone with a more subtle change to his effect, which is just giving him +1 attack. So previously he dealt 3 damage, now he deals 4. Is that a big enough difference to make Hal Jordan a more impactful leader? There's a big difference between 4 and 3. A lot of things that would previously live to Hal Jordan's effect are now going to die. I'm excited to see how this feels in gameplay, but my first impression is a positive one, especially now that the game should slow down a little bit. Honestly, I was expecting a pretty major change for Hal Jordan, but my expectation was probably out of line, especially because they've made a pretty dramatic change to the game with this patch, being that Batarang only deals 1 damage now, which dramatically changes one of the most popular leaders in the game, which obviously dramatically changes the meta in general. So doing dramatic changes to leaders like Hal Jordan is probably a bad idea on that same patch, because you want to see how everything settles out. So even though I wanted something more dramatic from Hal Jordan, this more measured approach is probably a better idea. Kenan got a pretty subtle change as well. He now reads if you have a character with shield instead of what he previously read, which is if you have a recruit with shield. Kenan gets shield. So this is really nice, especially because Crypto targets characters, so you could play Crypto in front of a friendly leader and then give that leader shield, and now it's less likely that that leader loses their shield effect. So now you can play Kenan in the future if you top deck him and you didn't have a plan to do some type of combo with him. So he's a much more flexible card than he previously was. Is this a big enough change to make Kenan more viable? I'm not sure. I haven't played much with the shield package, especially since Kenan's balance change in general, because he used to have an entirely different effect. I really want to see like the full shield package become its own independent deck with like Superman and Lois Lane and stuff like that, but overall I haven't been too impressed with the package. Maybe this Kenan change is meaningful enough that I should get in there and try it again, but I don't have high expectations for Kenan. High hopes, but not high expectations. What I do have high expectations for is Madame Xanadu, who got a major change. Madame Xanadu got -1/-1, so she used to be a 4/5, now she's a 3/4, but she now reads end. Create a magical spell instead of start. That is a huge difference. Madame Xanadu guaranteeing at least 1 magical spell in your hand is absolutely massive, plus it's a body the opponent has to deal with. Plus, if she does survive a turn rotation like you previously required her to, now she'll get 2 magical spells rather than just the 1. How awesome is that? Big fan of this Madame Xanadu change, and definitely, of all the changes that we go over today, this is the one I'm actually most excited about. Miss Martian is now a 6/6 instead of a 5/6. I don't have a list that I've been using her in that I like. I don't have a list for Miss Martian in general, but a 6/6 with aura should be no joke, so there has to be something we can do with Miss Martian, surely. I just haven't found the exact list that I want to run her in. Pedro Pena got +1 defense. That's a big deal. Pedro Pena wants to survive at least for a turn rotation so that you could take advantage of its effect. The only problem is I don't think its payoff is strong enough to warrant like building around him. I think he's a fine card in a vacuum, but we don't build around this effect, so finding a home for him can be a little bit awkward, but maybe he belongs in like a gadget-oriented SHAZAM Batman deck, which is something I definitely want to try out now, especially with some of the changes that we got to both the Batman cards and also the SHAZAM cards, so we'll have to take a look at that and see how all that comes together. Yeah, quite look forward to that, actually. All right, moving on to the sea creatures. We're going to go pretty rapid fire on these, hopefully, because there's quite a few of them to go over. We have the Great White Shark, who's gone from a 4/4 to a 4/3. Not a substantial change, and I'm happy Great White Shark's attack didn't change, because now he doesn't lose that Black Adam synergy that he previously had, so that's good to see, because I'm a big Black Adam enjoyer. So if you had to nerf Great White Shark, I'm glad it was his health and not his attack. A Humpback Whale got a reduction on its attack, though. It went from being a 2/7 to a 1/7. This is a reasonable change. It's nice that he's still this big tanky unit, which is probably what you want a whale to be. Storm the Seahorse got the biggest change. Your Aquaman leader is invincible and has +2 attack on your turn instead of +3 attack, and in addition to that, Storm the Seahorse also lost 1 defense. I would have liked to have seen how Storm the Seahorse performed at just 2 defense, 3 defense is still quite high, and the invincible keyword on Aquaman is huge. Now, it is nice that Aquaman's going to cap out at 5 attack with Storm the Seahorse instead of 6, and if Storm the Seahorse sticks around for an entire turn rotation, Aquaman's persistent damage after that is significantly lower than what it was before, so I'm excited to see how this actually feels in game now. My guess is that Storm the Seahorse will still be impactful, it just won't feel like it will completely blow out games like it previously did, which is probably about where you want Storm the Seahorse to be. It's still going to feel really good when you hit Storm the Seahorse, it's still going to feel really bad for the opponent, but it's not going to feel like they're completely out of the game like it sometimes did previously, or in some situations it will still, but that's the nature of the beast, I suppose. Squid got a reduction on its health as well, went from being a 4-2 to a 4-1. Happy to see this. This is great because again, it still has that Black Adam synergy that I was really worried that it would lose out on. But thankfully, it still has that Black Adam synergy, and I'm happy to still run Black Adam and Aquaman together. Again, a leader that people were expecting to see quite big redesigns of, but I think thankfully they've gone with a measured approach here, which is a really good idea, given, like I said, the game has probably changed quite a lot based on this patch. So what seems like a relatively minor change will hopefully feel more impactful because contextually the game has slowed down a little bit. SHAZAM still has his 3-cost ability. He gets +6 attack and creates 6 lightning bolts instead of 5 in your deck. I think this will feel surprisingly meaningful. I think a lot of people are going to look at this and be like, oh, it's just the same card. But I really do think that there's a good chance that this change is meaningful enough. SHAZAM already felt like he was a little underrated in my opinion. So just even a minor change like this could push him to the forefront of the game. Perhaps not like the actual forefront of the game, like not, you know, S tier or whatever, but excited to try out the new version of SHAZAM. It's definitely going to be one of the first things I jump into once the open beta goes live. Solstice is up next. She simply got +1/+1. Not a gigantic change, but a change worth mentioning nonetheless. She's still definitely a vulnerable card, like it's easy to kill off Solstice, but there's definitely board states you can set up where she's going to live multiple turns. I just don't know what the 40 card list looks like for Solstice. There's some interesting ideas with like Solstice Joker, where you play Solstice on turn 3, you use Joker's effect, and now you draw a card and you also get off Joker's effect. You can do stuff like that with Onomatopoeia, which results in like board clears and stuff like that, and then you could also just run Solstice in decks that run the Lightning Bolt package, and now all of a sudden your Lightning Bolts draw, or at least your first Lightning Bolt draws 2. This probably belongs in like the SHAZAM Batarang list that we just talked about, or the SHAZAM Batman list that we just talked about. But regardless of what the list looks like for Solstice, I'm happy to see that she got a buff because she was relatively underplayed before, and I'm curious to see if this buff feels meaningful. Nothing too much to talk about here. Supersonic Punch went from being +3 attack to +4 attack. I never really found a deck that I was happy to run this in, but in theory, I like this card a lot. It's just never really hit the way that I imagine it hitting. When I see this card, I think, oh, this is a great removal tool. I can play this. I don't have to worry about trading down or trading up. I can just throw this into something. I know it's going to die, and then I'm going to get to keep my unit. So the theory of this card plays out quite well, but the application has never really hit for me. And I don't think that the +4 attack is going to make that big of a difference, but maybe it will. Maybe it won't. I don't really have any crazy thoughts on Cheetah getting +1 attack. +1 attack is fine, like it's good. Probably good that aggressive strategies in general are getting more buffs, because aggressive stuff feels kind of weak right now, at least compared to some of the more control-oriented or mid-range options. So like straight up aggressive adrenaline burn packages probably need a little bit of help, and Cheetah getting +1 is a step in the right direction for them. Utility Belt got the biggest change of all. You can't see it in the graphic because the graphic isn't updated, but if you go to the website and you hover over Utility Belt, you can see the new text. The new text is seek any gadget, draw a card. They've reworded it a little bit, so it says seek any gadget rather than seek a gadget. So my guess is that it still shows you all 4 options, so you can just pick any gadget you want, and then you also get to draw a card. This is great. I think we run this in non-gadget decks. I think we run this in cyborg lists. I think we run this in gadget lists. I think we run this in a lot of different things. I'm really happy to see this change for Utility Belt. It is worth mentioning though that because you can only see this update on the website by checking the description of the card, we can't see what the cost of the card is. It's possible that the cost of Utility Belt went to silver instead of bronze, but only time will tell on that. But I just wanted to quickly mention that before I close out the video. Once again, before we end here, I just want to mention that Double Time and Booster Gold are both also getting changes, but neither of them have updated on the website. If anything changes, I'll update you with a comment and by updating the description. So you can go and check there and find out what the current status of those 2 cards are. In the meantime though, keep being awesome, and I'll catch you in the next one.